today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Radio Cayman Talk Today.
Listening to the general public, what the public is saying.
And good afternoon, Radio Cayman Nation, and a very happy Wednesday. Thank you for tuning into your station of the nation, Radio Cayman. I'm Raymond Singh, filling in for Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. We do have a full lineup today, and we'll be sitting down with the panel from Hope for Today. Following this very brief disclaimer, we'll be back with more talk today, right after this.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Live Communication.
Let your voice be heard.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
And welcome back to Talk Today. In case you're just tuning in, I'm Raymond Singh, filling in for Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. And in case you somehow have missed any of the media attention, we have quite a battle going on in the U.S. at present, and hopefully a battle going on today in studio with the McLean and Hyde here in studio. We're here to discuss the Clash of the Legends football tournament, or game rather, coming up in the very, very near future. Good afternoon, gentlemen, and welcome to Talk Today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So we're here to discuss the Hope for Today Clash of the Legends football game, which is taking place next Monday, November 9th. Mr. Brent Hydes and Mr. Brent McLean here in studio. Mr. Hydes, we'll put the spotlight on you first. Hope for Today Foundation, walk us through a bit of your foundation. I know we've had you in studio on several occasions, including last year before this big game.
First of all, let me emphasize the fact is I think that we're here for the right reasons.
Good.
And that's to look at the people in this community that are struggling with substance abuse issues. Together, Brent and I, and the East End boys and the West Bay or Legends, we're doing this for the right reason. And that's try to assist the individuals in this community struggling with substance abuse issues, while the Hope for Today Foundation provides a structured program and a home where these individuals that have been in the community, a lot of people look at them as outcasts.
Sure.
There comes a time in this community when they're probably only good for one thing, and that's coming up fairly shortly. We see them a little different. We fight and we be the voice for those sometimes that don't have a voice. Hope Foundation is putting on what we call a family fun day, entitled The Clash of the Legends. If you look up in the corner of the flyer, you see where we're putting on a lot of activities, even for the children.
Sure.
Bouncing castles, free food, etc. And I want to thank Brent and the boys from East End for recognizing what the foundation is trying to do. And we're doing this for one particular reason, and that is to help individuals in this community that are hurting with substance abuse issues. And we're trying to highlight the negative stigma also that surrounds substance abuse in this community. It's here, and together we can make a difference.
Can we touch on the negative stigma for just a second? On Monday, we had in studio Mental Health Matters, and we were discussing personality disorders, and many times we'll see a linkage between mental health concerns and substance abuse.
Yes.
How does that factor in with regards to the Hope Foundation and your halfway? Is it a halfway house?
Yes.
How does that factor in there?
There's been many times we have probation and rehabilitation has reached out to us, and we were able to accommodate some of these individuals that are dual diagnosed.
Sure.
And matter of fact, I can highlight today that we have had several people that have came into the house like this, that today that are productive members of this community.
Sure, absolutely.
Just the other day, we were able to take a gentleman down to Cayman National Bank to open a bank account. This gentleman has never had a bank account in his life. And you see the smile and the joy and the peace that comes to him just by this simple accomplishment.
Absolutely. So when it comes to the halfway house, for those listeners that aren't fully aware, How does the halfway house assist with getting individuals either sober or back on their feet?
Well, we're contacted otherwise with probation and rehabilitation, otherwise the counseling center, the drug rehabilitation court. We are connected by one of the entities. We try to work together closely with all the entities in this island that focuses on rehabilitation. They would contact the Hope Foundation and ask us if we do have a bed available. Matter of fact, now there's a couple of guys now that should be coming out on early release.
From the home?
From prison.
Oh, from prison, I'm sorry, okay.
They're coming out on early release.
Oh, early release from prison, I'm sorry,
yes,
okay.
and we've been talking to a couple of lawyers about trying to assist these clients. And you got to remember when these guys are caught up in the grips of addiction, family has completely abandoned them, throw them one side, got tired, and it happens. People get tired of the promises, and after a while the family just kind of turn their backs on them. But thank God for a program like the Bridge and the Hope for Today Foundation that continues to provide a program and a house to try to assist these guys in this community.
And how many beds or how many individuals can you house at your facility?
We can house up to 10 people comfortably.
Comfortably.
So you calculate that with the cost of doing a prisoner
No,
in
absolutely.
Northwood for a year.
Absolutely. And as far as the general length of time that an individual will remain at your facility, how long is that? A month? Is it?
It used to be 6 months.
Is there a minimum or the maximum?
Well, the minimum stay that we recommend
Okay,
is 6 months.
sure.
The maximum stay is 1 year.
Okay.
The maximum stay before was 6 months. What we recognize is that a lot of the individuals, about time they did their counseling at the counseling center, attend certain programs, the time that they had between that and trying to find a job was becoming quite difficult.
Sure.
So at the end of 6 months, they wasn't quite prepared. So we had to look at the program and what we were doing, and we extended it to a year.
Okay. And it seems very reasonable given what
It
you
is.
said.
It is.
Now, with regards to while they're living at the facility, is it a work and live program? Is it a scenario where they're in school at the same time? Are they required to have anything else going on along with their stay within the
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It's like I tell you, it's structured. So while to be at the home, you have to attend the counseling center. You have to seek counseling. You have to follow any guidelines that the drug rehabilitation court has put in place. You have to follow any program that the rehabilitation has put in place. Of course, you have to follow all the stuff that Hope Foundation does as far as 12-step meetings.
Okay.
You have to be actively seeking employment. But then again, it goes back to when I was talking about the 6 months. It depends on the program that has been set up and organized for the individual, is how tight and how slack we can be with that individual.
Sure. And then as far as the gender split, is it a male facility? Is it
At the moment, because of financial reasons, we're only operating a male resident.
A male resident right now. And when it's all said and done, you have 10 beds that you can house, or 10 individuals can be housed comfortably with your facility.
Correct.
With regards to others that might be in need, is there a future game plan or a long-term plan to whether expand the offerings of the Hope Foundation, increase facility size, different districts perhaps, sister islands? Is there any of those other programs that are currently in the works for the foundation?
At the moment, there isn't any, but that's a part of our plan.
Okay.
That's a part of our mission is to be able to see a halfway house actually established in every district in this island, because what we understand, or what we have to understand is, if you got somebody particular that their drug use of origins is in East End, and we can provide a bed for them in West Bay that takes them quite a ways, quite a distance from their old familiar stomping grounds, friends, and stuff like that. What we're doing, we're providing them, I believe, with a better chance.
By separating them from their district?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the further away we are,
yeah.
Sometimes it may seem a little uncomfortable, but the uncomfortable maybe is the best thing for you at that moment.
It usually is,
Yes.
I can imagine. When you're trying to break habits and patterns and familiar stomping grounds and the influences that kind of surrounded you in that environment, separating it and going to West Bay.
So correct.
So, and then I guess on the flip side of that is perhaps a house or a home in the East End district for those from West Bay who would need the similar kind of help.
Exactly.
Okay. So there's a plan there in the works to work towards that in the future.
Well, financial, when it comes to operating these kind of programs, finances is always the issue.
No, of course.
Right now, we try to help as many people as we can, and the rotation is going fairly smoothly with the guys that are transitioning from the house.
Sure.
And when I think of, just off the top of my head, the 4 individuals that have just transitioned from the house, and to know that they're holding down full-time jobs, being so proud and walking proud, and just being a part of society.
Absolutely.
Being involved,
Course,
instead of ducking and hiding behind the walls and smoking a piece of crack and then hiding behind the door and say, "Oops, nobody's gonna see me." It's for me, it's just wonderful to hear the joy and the peace that one develops once they get into rehabilitation and be able to follow the program and start accomplishing small things for themselves.
No, absolutely correct. Now, with regards to, and we'll get to the actual games in a second, because for our listeners to have a really robust understanding of the Hope Foundation, sorry about that, and the work that you're doing with regards to the individuals that are leaving the home. You mentioned 4 individuals that are transitioning to their own permanent dwelling outside of the home. How are they finding life once they actually get out there? You mentioned the individual opened up a bank account. Yes. You mentioned they're proud, but as far as the challenges that they're facing, is there any assistance that your organization is helping them with when they leave the house?
Well, the challenges are still there. And what is always suggested and we try to put in place is part of their foundation is to develop healthy relationships with individuals in the community. Come back to the rooms of recovery, find a home group, just stay connected. Just stay connected to the program. And there's so much, once they get clean, that they're able to give back to the community. Because, once someone starts feeling good about themselves, then they got so much wonderful things to share.
Absolutely. Any connection with the church groups within their own communities?
We don't, as a circle of recovery, we don't pressure an individual in the church. We allow that individual to make that decision for themselves. What we do is we establish a program of recovery, encouraging them to follow that. Many people have gone to church and has got clean and sober and has never went back to drugs. We don't push religion on people.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And then as far as the, it's never always going to be that utopian scenario where everyone that comes out of the home finds their way clean. Has there been an issue with anyone having to come back into the home?
Of course there is.
Okay.
Of course there is. When you're talking about fighting substance abuse, it's not an easy journey.
No, not in any way.
It's an uphill climb, and sometimes people fall off. But that's what makes it so wonderful, that the doors are there. If they need help, just reach back out to the Hope Foundation, Probation Rehabilitation, the Counseling Center. There's help available, and that's the great thing about it. And until these halfway houses actually became established, there was actually more people that was actually able to get clean, stay clean, and become a productive member of the community.
That's
so the halfway houses are the link that was so missing in this community.
Absolutely correct. On that note, let's go to our first commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be discussing more about the upcoming Family Fun Day and Clash of the Legends. I want to change it to the Clash of the Titans. It feels like saying Clash of the Titans off my tongue.
I think Brent could probably share a little bit of his struggle.
On that note, we have more talk today, right after this.
JN money card, but when my land up a JN, me get the money card with them. Just show them your ID and give them your TRN. Go and use at the ATM or swipe instead then. And when you need more cash, and make your family send it in a flash. From abroad to card, get the JN Money Card. It's safe, convenient, and free. JN Money Card only available and used in Jamaica. Call 345-945-2014 for details.
Maintaining a strong mind and body through sports and general healthy living is a good course of action.
Radio Command Sports Update, brought to you by Evangelist Joseph Ebanks.
Have you heard the call?
Inviting you to Have You Heard the Call? Weekly worship every Wednesday and Thursday. Listen to the biggest sports stories in Cayman, around the region, and around the world. Inside the 7 a.m. hour on Radio Cayman. Brought to you by Evangelist Joseph Ebanks. Have you heard the call?
Covering the Cayman Islands with the Word of God, one community at a time.
Weekdays on Radio Cayman. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. Are you currently a member and interested in management of your pension plan? If so, consider volunteering to be elected as a trustee at our upcoming extraordinary general meeting to be held on the 4th of November. Please visit our website, chamberpension.ky, or email pensions@chamberpension.ky for further details. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
And welcome back to Talk Today. In case you're just tuning in, I'm Raymond Singh, filling in for Mr. Sterling Dwayne Eubanks. As always, we do welcome you to join our conversation, share your stories or your feedback. Simply give us a call at 1-800-534-8255. That's 1-800-534-TALK. Or you can always WhatsApp us at 925-3261. Again, if you are just tuning in, we have in studio the Brents, Mr. Brent Hides and Mr. Brent McLean, here to discuss the Clash of the Legends football game and Family Fun Day, brought to you by the Hope Foundation. The event is taking place on Monday, November 9th. So we'll put the spotlight back on you fine gentlemen to discuss the game.
Yes, I would throw it back in Brent's hands. I think he could kind of probably emphasize of some of our old school friends and up in his district. There's many.
Yes, it's true. Well, like I say, it's always an honor to be here, and I'm always glad when Brent calls and says, "We want to play you guys because this is what we're doing." Sure. We're supporting Hope Foundation, and like Brent previously said, even though we are much older and we don't play the game anymore like we used to, it's for the cause that it is. We are absolutely delightful to be out there and just try to be a part of something that we know has so much value for people that are fighting with substance abuse. We see it across not just in it's not just in one district. It's not just down in West Bay. It's not just in Georgetown. We see it all over. Even in East End where I live, we see it. It's there. You see people that are begging because of it, and more so even these days. You see that a lot more now than you used to see it back in the 80s and the 90s when we were playing. You generally didn't see people that way, but it's more visible now. So it's something, and we always say, here in the Caribbean, you got to take care of your village, you got to look out for your neighbors. And that's all that we're trying to do with what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to raise funds because obviously Brent is doing an incredible job. Like he said, that was pretty much the missing link from recovery is the halfway house, and the fact that we have something like that. We're absolutely always delighted to come and help with that and try to raise funds wherever we can. Because the truth about it is, like he said, yeah, he has 10 beds, but we probably need 20, 30, 40, 50 of those, Said, right? And the vision that they have with regards to is absolutely brilliant with regards to try and have one in East End, one in Barton Town and stuff. Because, like he said, the best thing to do is remove them from. If they're in East End, take them all the way down to West Bay. If they're in West Bay, take them all the way up to East End. I know that we have had some people from East End that have gone through his program and are doing fairly well. So that's important. It's definitely important for us to be there. We're glad to be there. Anytime we come on the radio, we're always trash talking each other because the thing about it.
I hope you would, especially on a football match like this one.
the thing about it is when we were playing in the 70s and the 80s and early 90s, the demographics of the Cayman Islands was slightly different then. We're more now metropolitan now, but back then West Bay was West Bayers that born and bred in West Bay. All 20 of them that was on the team, they were born and bred in West Bay. All of them in East End, they were born and bred from there. They were indigenous people, and it was all about West Bay is better than East End, or East End is better. I mean, it was a real rivalry.
So who's better?
Who's better?
Well, see, let me tell you.
You know, the thing about it.
I love the figure. Let me tell you.
The thing about it. History would dictate that West Bay really did have a good team. Scholars and them was a really good team. But there were times
I love the
but there was times that East End held their own. You know, East End held their own. There was times that we took a whole FA Cup competition, and them people like West Bend, Georgetown, and Bordentown didn't like that at all. So, so the fact is that East End, we still live on the fact that, listen, on any given day, we could beat you, on any given day. Any given day, the ball is round, we could beat you. So,
I love the attitude.
Yeah.
We're going to delve more into this a little rivalry. I've heard about the rivalry. I'm quite involved in the football community, and I think it's still great to have that friendly rivalry. Although we do have one caller on the line. We'll go to in just a moment. How do you feel about the game being played up in West Bay?
Yeah.
Why? We have to hold this thing. It probably is a Georgetown caller on the line. So
try to get
just
it
a quick moment. We'll go to the caller.
Yeah. Playing the game in West Bay is absolutely fine. The truth is, like I said, the demographics of Ireland, how it used to be, it's slightly different now, but how it used to be back then was we didn't really have our own feel in East End in those days. Most of the games were played in fact, most of the games at that time was played in Georgetown, and then they eventually got a feel. They got a feel down in West Bay. So we're accustomed to being the away team and coming and having to prove ourselves on their grounds.
It's going to be a long ride for him.
Long ride home or long ride there?
Long ride back.
Yeah.
On that note, let's go to our first caller. I'm sorry, the caller. We did lose a caller a little while ago, so that's why our delay was.
Yeah. So we're accustomed to going in his home and have to school him down there. So that's what's gonna happen on Monday. We'll school him. Yeah.
I love the fighting words, the attitude. I'm sure our listeners watching by YouTube want to see like the grudge match pregame boxing photo where the guys that's the photo I want to see in the flyer next time. Is the Brents kind of standing there squaring off against each other.
Put some shoes on you if you come down, do you?
I'll come referee the game. I have no problem. This is the kind of game that I wouldn't mind refereeing. Taking pictures, commentating on. I commentated on the Legends game that they had for Celebrate Cayman a few years back.
Come down Monday.
Come Monday.
Feed you, treat you right. Good to give you that good old West Bay treatment. Because we treat them right,
But if for whatever reason East End wins, I've got to get out of West Bay safely. That's the tricky part, right? If East End were to win this game, I got to get out.
I would. You probably won't leave early.
Yeah,
that's where you got to sprint to the car.
Yeah, the truth about it, the West Bay team, they honestly they don't like losing. They don't. They don't take it easy. They don't. Yeah, they don't.
I love the attitude. I love the friend. And the only thing I have a problem with so far is you said that old. We got to change that word to seasoned. Experienced.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Legendary.
Okay.
Because that implies that these players came from the 70s and 80s, but
it works for 60-year-olds like us. Yeah, let's take that. Let's take that.
But but the truth is that when you come on Monday, you'll still see a certain amount of brilliance, and you will realize that these guys used to play and they know the game. Nowadays we can't run as fast, so you have to use your head on the game.
Absolutely.
And you will see a certain amount of brilliance.
The guys from Georgetown learned that last time we played them.
Come a little closer.
Yeah, so the guys from Georgetown, they learned that the last time we played them. We allowed them to win for several times, and then when West Bay finally got tired of it, just shut them down.
You notice
now we find it difficult to get them to come back.
You notice what he just said. The same thing I said about them not liking to lose. He just said they allowed them to win, right?
Those are the fighting words. Those are the words that start the fire, right? They allowed them to win.
They allowed them to win.
You can't even let them earn the victory. We allowed them.
We can't even say that they lost. We allowed them to win.
This is why. This is what you call a seasoned athlete, right here. He understands. He understands the psychology to athletes, right? And right now, he's already lined up next year's game with them, thinking, "Oh, wait a second, we got to go up there and."
I've been struggling now to get them to come out. I mean, they got more excuses. You can shake a stick at. I'm too busy. I'm too this. I'm too that. They're just too busy.
Now, but you mentioned a great point there. The speed of the game on Monday might be a little slower than fans would have been used to 30 years ago.
Yep.
But the skill's still there. The finesse is still there.
Absolutely.
The brains are still there.
Yep.
We're just moving at a slower pace, and our recovery time is probably a little bit longer.
Yep.
We probably require a couple days after doing
well, let me say this. See, the only two people that are happy that are really prepared to come back to West Bay and take the challenge on is Mr. Neil Murray and Lloyd Stoker. If you talk to the rest of those boys, I'm kind of busy.
That's the Georgetown crew.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
See, they still haven't got over the beating yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure most are listening right now. That's great. But I love it. I love that level of camaraderie amongst the teams, because I'm sure 30, 40 years ago, there's a little more animosity between some of the teams. And now that some of the exuberance of our youth is kind of, melted away, we're left with just football and some laughs, right?
Yeah, but, even back then, I have to be truthful, even back then when we were young and we played the game and we were fast and we was vibrant and all of that stuff, there was still always the level of respect from each district. Yeah, sure. West Bay beat East End, but we're still Caymanians, and we still look up for each other, and we still know each other. We know each other well. So it wasn't to that point. Oh, we're gonna be so angry at people. It was never that way. So what we do here, and trash talk each other. We did that back then too, so nothing's changed. We were Caymanians, and we believe in the process, and we believe in who we are. We try to hold our corner for our district. It's always fun. It's always fun. Yes.
On that note, we do have to go to our commercial break. I would invite the caller who we lost earlier on the line. Please do give us a call back, 1-800-534-8255. We'll be back with more talk today right after this.
Do you remember when 2020 was great?
I don't think it was...
2020 vision, not the year.
Right.
Make 2020 great again with Optical Outlook, the new West Bay store now open. With their designer frames and sunglasses, eye health has never looked so good. Call 746-2020 and book your eye exam today at Caymanian Village and now at Jake Scott Plaza in West Bay, offering premier eye care in Cayman for over 30 years. Come see the difference with Optical Outlook.
The Ministry of Tourism's Displaced Tourism Employee Stipend Program has reopened for registration from Monday, 2nd November through Wednesday, 4th November. This fourth registration period is for new registrants only, and all information must be supplied via the online portal, stipend.ourcayman.ky, by the deadline 4th November. Email stipend@caymanislands.ky with any questions.
Now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Everywhere.
Can you hear me now? Everywhere. Everywhere.
Yes, right from your Android or iPhone. Download the Radio Cayman app now on your Android or iOS phone.
The Radio Cayman app
is where you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere you go.
Everywhere we go, we go. Everywhere we go, we go.
Find it in the Google Store, the Apple Store, or use the link at www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Yes, now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Oh, Cayman moon.
The voice of the Cayman Islands, Radio Cayman.
Shining down from above.
We love our listeners.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
And welcome back to Talk Today. In case you're just tuning in, I'm Raymond Singh, filling in for Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, and very pleased to have in studio Mr. Brent Hides and Mr. Brent McLean here to discuss this coming Monday's Clash of the Legends football game and Family Fun Day, brought to you by the Hope Foundation. This is a fundraiser charity event raising funds for the Halfway House, which is organized by the Hope Foundation. Mr. Hides, if we can go back to the festivities for Monday, what can fans anticipate if they come out on Monday?
It starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and with that we'll be providing bunks and castles. People can be shooting basketball. We're looking now for some bags, so we can do some sack racing. There'll be a different number of festivities, but if they come up from 3 to 6, we'll also be providing food, which is being prepared by the Mango Tree and Island Taste. These companies and restaurants basically has been with us from the beginning. From the time we started to put these events on, they have been preparing the food for us. We want to thank Uncle Clems for providing the food for them to prepare. So there's a number of individuals that have contributed to make this the success that it always has been. When I think of the attendance that these games get compared to CFA football games today, it's amazing. It's amazing to see the community or our communities come out and support not only the Hope Foundation, but how they enjoy watching the old footballers. People like Ivan Fineton, that's 83, I think he's 83 or 85 years old. Ivan has been challenging Mr. Lenny Hugh. He has been challenging him now for about 5 years and can't get him to come out. Ivan said, Lenny, you come up, make a shift you up, make a teacher lesson football. And he just wouldn't come. But I won't continue to send the challenge. So today, I'm going to send it out to Mr. Lenny. I won't find and continues to send out the challenge for you to come out and participate in these games. And he'll be waiting for you probably at our next game against Georgetown.
Well, if Lenny want to come out on Monday, I'll take him. I'll put him. I'll let him run with East End a bit. So I don't have no problem with that.
Awesome.
Make him run with East End.
So there you go, buddy.
I love the challenge.
There you go, buddy.
I love the challenge. It just shows like an athlete is an athlete is an athlete. Doesn't matter if you're 5.
Yeah.
You still want to win.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if you're 85. You're still gonna want to win.
But
You still want that challenge.
You know what we got to understand between Lenny and Ivan? You know, these guys have been with this community for so long, just participating in sports, and I think it would be awesome to see the two of them kind of kick feet on the field against each other.
Of course it would. It would be fantastic to see that level. Like I brought up earlier, the Legends game that was done by Celebrate Cayman a few years back. That was done at Truman Bodden.
Right, yes.
That was a fantastic game. You saw some of the much older footballers coming out, a few extra pounds on some of them, and they admitted it before the game.
See, the only thing that was missing was me. see, they wanted me to talk because they realized that when it came to the ball, that I probably would have made all them boys look smart.
I love the athlete. Yeah. That fire in you just never goes.
So I think if they had Brent on one side and me on the next side, it probably would have been a little bit better and more challenging because the skill that I have and still have.
The best. So to all of our listeners, I hope you are planning to attend the game on Monday. This is what you get to see. We get to see it live in a football arena. But now the event starts at 3 and the game starts at 6.
You know what's so funny saying? I was watching those guys play. And my feet were ready to go. And I was saying, look at them. Look at the boy. Look what they're doing today. I said, you know how much better I could do? You know how much better and how much more footwork I could really teach and educate these people about this game.
Yeah, but Brent, you only gonna get about 30 seconds,
and
then that's it.
And they had John out there.
Yeah,
they had John. I said, I could do better than that. I said, I know I could do better than that.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be fun on Monday.
You know, it would almost be great to see like a round robin game. Like instead of doing a full length game, have a few get 4 of the older season teams together and have like a little round robin rally. I don't know who could be able to finish the afternoon.
Yes,
might be a little tiring after the first game.
Yeah, that maybe that's something we could consider the next time.
Well, you know, I've been trying to get Bodden Town to join the fun.
Sure.
I think it was one time came
They
up one
came
time.
down one time,
Yeah.
West Bay pound them up, and they never came back since.
Yeah.
So since West Bay is this powerhouse,
But of course, that
the
was
season
during
teams,
that was during the election year.
during
too,
the election
so,
year.
Yeah.
Would it be a scenario we can see West Bay take on the
I
best
think
of
we
the
started.
rest?
I think Osborne Borden was so much fun. I think he came down and he
Yeah.
participated. It was so just such a joy.
Yeah.
Such a joy.
Yeah, I think he hurt himself and he never been the same.
Yeah, the spirit.
You know, I do love the attitude. Now, for the family, let's go back to the event. On Monday, there is you have bouncy castles with the kids. You have food from Mango Tree and Island Taste.
Yes, they're preparing the food for us.
But you've had a number of other sponsors who have come on board to really
Yes.
assist with the event. Do you want to take a quick moment to just
Sure,
give a
go
shout
ahead.
out to all of our
You want to do it? Go
our
ahead,
sponsors?
Your eyeballs
Sure,
out of
yeah.
mine,
I don't mind reading these out. We have Coldwell Banker. We have Junk, Cayman National, McAlpine, Calypso Grill, Madak, Coconut Joe's, Lobster Pot, Island Taste, Frank Hall Homes, Arch and Godfrey, Island Air, C3, Dr. Tomlinson, Morgan's Harbor, Mango Tree, and Foster's.
Yes, and there's Shore Built that has also come on board.
And
too.
Shore Built has also come on board.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So you see, we all remember that. Bear in mind, though, that those sponsors is companies that support the foundation all year round. So we like to highlight the fact of what their contribution to this organization. Because if it wasn't for small businesses, the foundation would not survive. It's kind of like running a country. If it wasn't for the small businesses.
Small businesses do quite a few, but
Right.
they do. That's the reality of it.
Sure.
Now, I'm assuming the Hope Foundation takes on other sponsors throughout the year.
Yes.
What kind of sponsorship? Is it supplies? Is it funds to help run the home? How can sponsors get involved in the future?
Well, understand that the home that we run like any ordinary home. You know, we need money to pay light bills, you need money to pay water bills, you need food, you need upkeep to the yard. So anything that anybody can drop by the home or contact myself or go on our website and contact one of the board members. It's run like any other home. We need all the essentials that any other home would run by. If you care to make a contribution financially, you could go to Cayman National Bank and just simply ask, I want to make a contribution to Hope for Today Foundation, and you can put it directly into your account.
That's fantastic.
Or you want to do a check, you want to call me or one of the board members, just write the check, Hope for Today Foundation.
And what is the number to call you at?
They can contact me at 928-9099.
That's great. And as far as the future progress of the Hope Foundation and the goal of building a home in all of the other districts, and I'm assuming as well as Sister Islands as well,
yes.
With Cameron Brack, there's a lot of funds that are needed to get to that point. I'm assuming the goalpost is really far down the field on this one.
It is.
For those longer-term plans, is it possible for sponsors to earmark funds that are directed towards those future homes, or how does that process work?
They could just look at where we're at and recognize the fact that we do need more of these facilities. And I've spoken to Dr. Thompson. He wanted to look at a home that he have, and he was thinking about actually donating the home and the land to Hope for Today Foundation. This was a conversation that Dr. Thompson and I have had several times. It hasn't come involved yet. I've spoken to several of the sponsors where we've actually thought about trying to buy the property that we're on now, except the landlord doesn't want to sell it.
So you don't actually own the land. You have to pay rent for your...
Yes, we pay rent for that. We're looking at some things that hopefully middle part of next year could be much different. Let me put it that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, this could be government initiatives also too. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things to think about. But yeah, it's a great plan to try and have different halfways.
Absolutely correct.
In different districts and stuff. So I think it's a great thing. So I think we're just kind of scratching the surface of what could be and what help could be given.
And I think there's actually so much we could do. And I think again, we got to understand when we're looking at someone that is struggling with substance abuse issues. With that brings crime. You know, when someone is trying to feed their dope habit, it puts all of us at risk, not some of us. Because remember that we're not immune from crime. And these guys will go into your house. They'll take your TV. Chances are, if you catch them and you got family in there, your family might get hurt. It's a risky thing, you know, and we must look at it and take it very, very seriously. I mean, you look at just across the street over there, several years ago, there was a young man that actually got killed because he went into somebody's house.
Sure, yeah.
And that's just a piece of it. And if we do not take this seriously, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse because remember, at the end of the day, none of us is immune from this.
Totally agree. Yeah, I agree.
None of us.
No, there's a lot there, and I think you definitely speak passionately about the need to address this issue.
It has to be.
There's some preventative issues that I think also need to be joined into that conversation. But as far as addressing the addiction part and these halfway houses, like you said before, it's the missing link in
I
the
think,
solution.
you know, we got the facility and we connect with the people and we try to continue to focus on addressing the underlying issues. Is the underlying issues that causes these individuals to turn to drugs.
Now, we only have a few minutes. When you say underlying issues, in a very quick...
we got to talk about the mental, the physical abuse and all that other shit. Sorry?
Stuff.
All that stuff.
Stuff.
All that stuff.
All good.
All of the stuff that may have taken place in someone's life and what has caused them to actually turn to drugs in the first place. And if you ask an individual why did they turn to drugs? They can come up with some other reason except for, I just wanted to get high.
Yeah, no, of course. There's many other reasons.
Yeah.
I saw a quote the other day that one of the primary drivers to addiction is the need to escape reality.
Exactly.
Sure.
And it's that need to constantly be in the other world.
What they're doing is, my experience is that they're running from the pain.
Sure. It was exactly the reality of the pain.
It's the pain and not wanting to address those issues, that abuse, and all that stuff that has happened. And we try to run from it.
Of course.
But unless it's properly addressed, it's always going to resurface.
You know, we could probably do a whole other show just about the driving causes and look at it from a societal, holistic standpoint on addressing it.
Dr. Borden and I have had some conversations about this issue. And, you know, Cayman is being the way it is. If you dig deep and long and far, you'll find out that there's so much abuse that's happening in the households right here in this little island that people would like to kind of sweep away and say it never happened.
Sure.
And it's happening every day. Every day, the verbal abuse. Because most people are fairly sick themselves. So if you're sick, you're going to find it very difficult to actually try to help somebody. Because you look at our fathers, and some of the stuff and the behaviors that's happened here in the past. And I don't want to get into...
Sure, no, that's fine. We only have about 30
but
seconds. So.
You look at all the stuff that's happening in the past, and you understand why some of the people turn out the way they turn out. And the only logical thing you come up with is his father done the best he could. My dad done the best he could. Your father done the best he could at that particular time.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah,
he knew no better.
Yeah. That's just it, right? We're always.
But that's what we got to do. We have to change that.
Yes.
That whole cycle. Whole cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And things like this that we're doing is about changing that cycle and letting people know that there is hope. That there is hope.
That there is hope, and that's just it. We are quick out of time, so let's quickly recap the event.
Hope for Today Foundation putting on their Family Fun Day on November the 9th, where the all East End boys will be going up against West Bay legends, the skillful bunch of all the legends. We're going to
take you on.
All right. So we want to invite the community to come out, participate, enjoy the food, bring out their children for the bunks and castles. The event is absolutely free to the public. We don't put nothing in the way to enter, to come in, to enjoy the food. We have been out there selling a couple of tickets because this was an event that we should have been having in May.
Sure.
But because of COVID-19, it had to be cancelled. So now we're actually going to let the event happen. anybody that has had a ticket for the May event, it will be honored at this event. So if you still got your ticket, come out, hold on to it. We'll honor it. There's also some great gift certificates to be won from Morgan's, PD's, Rackham's.
Oh, great.
Calypso Grill, Coconut Joe's, Power Sailing Rides. And we'll honor the tickets that was purchased for the event in May.
That's fantastic.
But bear in mind, just come out, eat, bring your kids, bring your family. If you don't have a family, grab somebody else's family. Just come out and enjoy the event.
Ask first.
Yeah.
On that note, Monday, November 9th, 3 p.m., Edinburgh Stadium. This is the Clash of the Legends. You don't want to miss the Battle of West Bay and East End. This is the seasoned folks that played back in the 70s and 80s. Again, Mr. Hayes, Mr. McLean, thank you so much for coming in.
We want to also, with God's will, we'll let it happen on Monday. Bearing the weather. Yeah. So
fantastic.
Thank
On
you.
that note, let's go to our 1 p.m. headline news. When we come back, we're meeting the team from Hazard Management.
Thank you.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on Cayman.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Quarantine at Home program is expanded to the sister islands. Effective November 7th, 2020, travelers residing in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman will be permitted to quarantine at their residence. You can find the full details at exploregov.ky. In international news, the U.S. presidential election has Donald Trump and his rival Joe Biden neck and neck in key swing states. But Mr. Trump, a Republican, claimed to have won and vowed to launch a Supreme Court challenge without providing evidence of fraud. Millions of votes remain uncounted, and no candidate can credibly claim victory as yet. Reports of ETA's catastrophic damage from rains, winds, and flooding in Nicaragua and Honduras have begun to roll in. By Wednesday morning, ETA has dropped to tropical storm status with 70-mile-per-hour winds, according to the National Hurricane Center. Though weakened, the storm will linger over the region for the coming days, bringing, quote, catastrophic life-threatening flash flooding, river flooding, and mudslides, according to the NHC. After a 3-year delay, the U.S. has become the first nation in the world to formally withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. The U.S. could rejoin it in the future should a president choose to do so. The Paris deal was drafted in 2015 to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
Information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Your voice, your choice, your radio.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Introducing the new Digicel Prime bundles, better than anything we've offered before, with more data than ever, more music on the music, more live sports on Sportsmax, more movies on Playgo, more video chats on BIP. With the new Digicel Prime bundles, it's never been easier to get more digital experiences, plus extra data. Get 50 gigabytes with a 7-day bundle. So much data, so much fun. Buy in My Digicel app today, the Caribbean's fastest mobile network. Digicel, better together.
The Cayman Islands Justices of the Peace Association will be holding its annual general meeting on Wednesday, the 18th of November, starting at 5:30 p.m. in Conference Room 1038 on the ground floor of the Government Administration Building. Entry to the building will be through the staff entrance. All members of the association are encouraged to attend. The agenda will include special donation presentations to recipients of 3 non-profit organizations that render services to children and youth in our Cayman Islands community. Refreshments will be provided. Remember, the Justices of the Peace Association annual general meeting is Wednesday, November 18th at the Government Administration Building.
Talk today. But I do have some question.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
And welcome back to Talk Today. In case you're just tuning in, I'm Raymond Singh, filling in for Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. And hopefully you are listening to us and not watching the U.S. media stream of the 2020 elections, because we are far more entertaining than anything to do with Trump and Biden, right? But again, pleased to have in studio now the team from Hazard Management. We have Miss Danielle Coleman, Mr. John Tibbetts, and Lady T, Miss Teresita Da Silva. Welcome to Talk Today.
Great to be here.
Great to be here.
I must say that John is actually at Cayman Islands National Weather Service, but we are incredibly close partners. So whilst we'd love to have him at Hazard Management, he does run the whole weather over there. So
you're like the adopted
partners.
Son of Hazard Management.
They couldn't meet my terms.
We can't afford him.
They can't afford you. You're just like, you just set the terms way too high, and
he's very high maintenance, Sergeant.
Very high. You know, you're allowed to be high maintenance because at the end of the day, you're covering like the most high maintenance like field there is. Weather.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Being the weather guru.
Stressful.
Stressful, isn't it?
It is. We're getting pushed and pulled from all over the place.
No doubt.
And we definitely kudos out to my staff. I always tell them, and I think Mr. Sambola told them before, is that whether they realize it or not, a big part of their job is to make me look good. And they do a fantastic job.
They do a great job of that, don't they? We know who's the boss over there.
Yeah, well, they're brilliant individuals. And I was going through what we in government call our cabinet billings, where we look each month at what we did over the past month. And normally the National Weather Service would put out about 30 or 40 warnings for a month. And that's on a fairly strong month. And when I looked at October, and we were just going through the cabinet billings for that, and October had like 122 warnings. That's because we dealt with about 4 tropical systems, I believe, in October.
Wow.
So it is an incredible amount of work, an incredible amount of job, work that the staff did.
Now, just to clarify for our listeners, when you say a warning being put out by your office,
correct,
what does that actually entail to put out warning?
Well, we have a variety of different types of warnings. Right now, we're starting to put out some templates right now, which would include things like flood warnings, high wind warnings, maritime type warnings. Earlier in the year, we were talking about dust warnings and all those kind of stuff. So it's been all over the place, and it's been an extremely busy year.
It has been a very busy 2020 for you. I forgot all about, it's been such a wild year. I forgot all about the dust storms that we had earlier in the year.
Yeah.
It's been a wild year. We had the earthquakes.
Earthquake, 23 or 24 aftershocks, the tsunami scare, the dump fire, the dust clouds, the very active hurricane season, and we haven't finished yet. So
yeah, we still have 2 months to go, right? Don't drink anything. He's like, wait, hold a second. I got enough work on my plate.
They put it out there in the universe.
Did we forget to even say COVID in that?
Oh, no. We didn't. We missed the pandemic.
What was that?
that thing that kind of hit the whole world on a weird scale. Shut down economy, shut down borders, planes went down.
Selective memory, clearly,
I was. I'm getting ready to prepare for the meeting of the directors of Caribbean Weather Services coming up later this month. And I have to make a presentation during that session.
You don't sound too enthused.
What we got hit with, and what, you understand? So, and I initially had put on it, to be honest with you, we had a whirlwind that went through the Foster's Park and all that kind of stuff was in there. So it has really been one crazy year.
Yeah, we had the water spot just last week.
Yeah, we were actually in the plane to go to Little Cayman last week to do a Cert, Community Emergency Response Team training. And obviously it was very bumpy anyway because we left on Monday morning, but we also had a water spout outside the wing of the plane. And so it was a bit of it was a bit further off, but at the same time, sitting in a plane and seeing a water spout that close was a bit harrowing for all of us. And then when we got there, we had no electricity to start training, but we had a great week anyway, despite that.
You made the best of it.
We always make the best of things.
Oh,
no matter what it is, we
have
make
no
the best
choice,
of it.
right?
We have no choice.
We have two choices.
Well, we have a choice.
We have a choice. We can complain about it, or we can make the best
we're
of it,
much better off making the best out of the situation.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah, adapt accordingly.
Now, John, with regards to the National Weather Service, how many are part of your team over there at the Weather Service?
The staffing complement right now is 16.
16 altogether?
Yeah.
And they're all based here in Grand?
All based in Grand Cayman, yeah. And yes, we're understaffed.
And you're understaffed?
Yes, big time.
Well, you're doing 122 warnings? Was that what he said?
Yeah, but we don't have the staffing to run a full 24-hour service.
Sure.
Hazards management would like us to be that because we would play a bigger role with regards to the tsunami warnings system and stuff like that.
Of course.
So, but the aviation sector would dearly love us to go 24 hours because every aircraft that comes into the island or goes out from the island must have aviation weather observations and must have aviation forecasts.
And right now they're dependent upon yourselves for that.
Yes, but we don't operate 24 hours, so we kind of have to work on some ways of getting around that, and there's constant pressure on us to provide this 24-hour service.
Of course. Definitely a scenario of trying to play catch up on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's not the only sector. Obviously, hazards management would like us 24 hours. The maritime sector is also coming on board and what have you, and they're asking us for special services as well. So
you're basically saying is you're not going on vacation for a very long time.
Yeah, something like that.
you and your team.
I do have plans to sneak out here and there, but it gets to this time of the year, and I actually took a couple of days off, and right in the middle of it, I ended up having a debrief for Delta, so that didn't work out. So I'm waiting until after the meeting with the directors, and then I'm going to take a week off before I wrap it up at the end of the year, so to speak.
Don't tell anybody why you're going, what you're doing. Just turn your phone off and go.
Well, you mean
He's not allowed
my
to,
favorite is called drop off the face of the earth vacation.
Yes, that one.
Problem is that the face of the earth is always here in the Cayman Islands thanks to COVID.
That is true. You're not going anywhere. Maybe a fishing trip. Sister Islands. You can hide in Little Cayman.
I can hide in Little Cayman?
Theoretically.
You definitely could.
He's debating it.
Hide.
This side of the table doesn't like me right now, but this side of the table is going, yeah.
We would love to hide in Little Cayman right now. Unfortunately, we are actually booked tomorrow, but given the weather forecast, it looks like we might have to not reschedule that, unfortunately.
No, fair enough. And before we jump into the storm or this current weather situation we have going on right now, you mentioned you're speaking to the regional weather directors.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that before we go to our break.
Well, it's a meeting that we have every November, where the organization has 16 countries or 16 different national weather services around the Caribbean.
Okay.
And we're also talking to the likes of Suriname, and I think we're also was talking to Bahamas and Bermuda to possibly join the group.
To have them join the
group.
Is this based out of CARICOM, or is this your own independent?
This is part of the Caribbean Meteorological Organization.
Okay.
That's run. The headquarters is run out of Trinidad.
Okay.
It has a part of it the training center that's in Barbados.
Okay.
And we've got countries in it such like all the way over here in Belize. We've got Jamaica. We've got Barbados, Trinidad. BVI, can't remember all of them. Turks and Caicos is supposed to be there.
Okay.
So, we've got a bunch of the Caribbean countries that get together every year about November, and we discuss the hurricanes and what happened to us, and we look at the regional observing network and a bunch of things.
And as far as I'm assuming this whole thing will be digital, given the COVID situation.
Given this year, yes, it'll be digital.
Have we ever hosted that event in the past?
Yes, we've hosted it 2 or 3 times, and actually we're up to host it now, but obviously they're going to be asking me, are you going to host it in 22 or 23 or something like that? And still there's a lot of things up in the air before we can say, yeah, we're going to host it.
No, of course, that's 2020 for you, right? Nothing concrete happens this year.
I'm not too sure about that, to be honest with you. But
fair enough. On that note, let's go to our first commercial break of this hour, and then we come back. We'll talk about the current weather forecast and outlook and what we can do about it. Back with more talk today right after this.
What a great spot for lunch. I haven't been here in ages.
I saw it on Experience Cayman.
What's that?
It's a free online festival showcasing all the great things to do in Cayman.
Oh, that's so cool. I'll check it out for sure. Now, what are we having for lunch?
Experience Cayman is a celebration of everything local to rediscover all the best things to see and do in the Cayman Islands. Visit gov.ky/Experience Cayman and follow Experience Cayman on Facebook and Instagram. Brought to you by the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure.
Shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands. Would you like to win some extra cash for Christmas? Yes, cash, cash, cash! Well, here's your chance to do so. The Cayman Islands Netball Association, CINA, is having their Cash Showrama fundraiser, which was postponed due to the lockdown. The Cash Showrama will now be held on December 19th at Constitution Hall, formerly the Georgetown Town Hall. There are 4 top prizes of $1,000 each, plus 10 prizes of $100 pure hard cold cash. You don't have to be present to win, so get your ticket today from any player or association member. Donation is only $15. All previous tickets purchased for the Casharama will be honored. Great entertainment and food will be on sale. Proceeds from the event will go towards the netball development program that will help improve the international ranking of all the squads. The Cayman Islands Netball Association Casharama, coming December 19th. CINA, a registered charity organization.
Digital is not a buzzword, it is a culture. At Digicel, we've made it our mission to enrich your digital lives. That's why we're bringing together more of all the experiences you love. The latest shows, the best of local and international music and radio, live sports, cloud storage, breaking news, HD video chats, and more. Welcome to Digital at Digicel, the Caribbean's fastest mobile network. Digicel, better together.
Maintaining a strong mind and body through sports and general healthy living is a good course of action. But what about your spiritual man, your inner man? He has to be awakened, fed, exercised, strengthened, and led according to the will of God. So, have you heard the call? I'm Evangelist Brother Joseph Joey Ebanks, and I'm inviting you to worship Wednesday and Thursday nights at 7:30. We are bringing the Word of God to our communities as Jesus commanded. Faith comes by hearing. So come and hear. Bring your own chair or simply park and listen to the Word of God from your vehicle, covering the Cayman Islands with the Word of God, one community at a time.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
And welcome back to Talk Today. In case you're just tuning in, I'm Raymond Singh, filling in for Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, here in studio with amateur photographer Ms. Danielle Coleman, along with Mr. John Tibbetts and Ms. Teresita De Silva, here discussing our general weather outlook and staying prepared through all of this. It's been a chaotic 2020. If we can discuss the current weather that we are coming up. We just came off of a tropical storm very recently. Obviously, we've now seen Hurricane Ida and the damage that Ida or Etta? Which one is it? Ida, okay. So
Potatoes.
Actually, what
the
Hurricane Center does is that if you look at the first print out of the names for the year, they actually give you how to pronounce each one. Because when we are having our regional hurricane meeting, and if we're retiring names, and you have to, when you retire a name, you've got to propose a new name. And then we've got to sound it out to make sure it sounds good so that we all know what we're talking about.
I pride myself on learning one new fact every day.
That's good.
That was my fact. That was the fact right there of what there's actually a pronunciation guideline to all of the storm names.
Right.
So it is Ida. Ida. Sorry. Now you're confusing me.
we did have to do a Google search as to exactly how to pronounce these things.
Yeah.
It is Ida.
Yeah,
it is.
You got to be careful about a Google search as opposed to what the Hurricane Center.
Well, we have been discussing internally at the
yeah.
office as well. So how do you pronounce it?
Absolutely. So, what is our general weather outlook now that we've all seen the storm turn off in Nicaragua, and very unfortunate for the folks out in Central America, the damage they took.
Yeah, they're still in for quite a ways. Still in for a lot of trouble with it.
The tail end of the storm coming around.
Yeah, the storm right now is at about 13.9 north and about 85.2 west. And that is near the border between Honduras and Nicaragua. And it is up in the mountainous area in that particular sector of the world. And what it usually means is that it's dumping a ton of rainfall right now.
Sure.
And it's causing a lot of landslides and rapid flooding and what have you. So there's going to be a large danger, very significant danger involved with freshwater flooding. The wind speeds have dropped down. It is a tropical storm, and I would suspect later on today, maybe tonight, it's probably going to be a depression.
Okay.
And it's going to weaken and continue to move west, and it's supposed to come out somewhere nearby Belize in the Gulf of Honduras sometime on Friday morning.
Okay.
And this is where it starts to get kind of iffy, as it were. And even when you look at the National Hurricane Center forecast in terms of the latter part of its forecast, they will tell you they don't have a high degree of confidence in what's going to happen at that point.
Okay.
However, the prediction on it, the latest prediction on it, has it moving from the Gulf of Honduras across the Isle of Pine sometime on Saturday. While it gradually strengthens, it will strengthen back to a tropical storm. And then by Sunday and Monday, it's up by Key West, the Key West area.
And what are they forecasting theoretically to occur at that point?
Well, that's as far out as the forecast goes, but by that time it's going to be a storm with about 50 knots of wind.
Okay. But when it passes Isle Lines, it'll be at that 50 mile per hour winds?
When it crosses us, it's going to have about 40 knot winds.
Okay. So still nothing fun to hang around.
Yeah, well, and the National Weather Service will be having out running dual sets of warnings. Okay. Both in terms of flooding and in terms of adverse marine conditions, all the way through about Saturday before we start to see a clear up going into Sunday.
So, okay.
Sunday looks like we will see some blue sky.
Right. So yes.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
And just bear in mind, of course, for listeners, is that things can change, so you have to be prepared for any eventuality. I mean, the preparation shouldn't change that much as far as your disaster supplies and so forth goes. Not necessarily to board up windows at this stage, but at the same time, just to be aware that things can change quite dramatically, quickly.
At the end of the day, that storm, we're still well within, right on the border of the cone there, coming out of Nicaragua, from that diagram. Are we just outside of the cone?
Well, we're just outside the edge of the cone.
Okay.
All right, and you got to be careful with some of the products that you use on the Hurricane Center website, because even though we're outside the cone, the interesting part about it is that the Hurricane Center produces something that it calls the estimated arrival time of your tropical storm force winds. And it does have that for the Cayman Islands.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, and it depends on when the products come out and what have you. Sure. Now, things are changing, and the forecast track is back and forth. And sometimes you got to look at what the Hurricane Center is looking at, and then you can look at other weather models and see what they're looking at to see how far apart they diverge.
Sure.
Because some of the models may actually forecast the system to come closer to Cayman, and if it does end up going on that track, then it will impact us more.
Fair enough, makes sense. And as far as the updates as it comes out from the National Weather Service, how many times a day will those updates be coming out over the next week?
We will be getting full updates every 6 hours.
Okay.
And intermediate every 3 hours in between.
In between, okay. Yeah. So the full updates are every 6 hours.
So right now at 1 o'clock, there's an intermediate out.
Okay.
The difference between the intermediate and the full is that the full will carry a forecast path and other products, and all the intermediate brings is what we call is the public product, which basically has this is the location of where the storm is, this is the direction it's going, and stuff like that.
Okay.
And that can be found at the National Weather Service pages, but also Hazard Management and the government pages. And the Weather Service also have a great app. Yeah. So if you want to keep it, in touch with that the whole time, you just download the app for the Weather Service.
And that's the Cayman Weather Service.
Yeah.
Modern technology, app for everything.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. The Weather Service app. All right. So staying prepared was the message that we want to definitely make sure everyone takes home from today's show. Thankfully, the storm currently is the course, but thankfully, and hopefully it stays the course away from Cayman. But at the end of the day, like you said, anything can change.
I think we can look at Delta and see how that rapid intensification happened, and just to make sure. And when we look at 2020, we've had to be ready for such a different types of emergencies. So I think it is critical that people, really are aware and following like the official sources. I mean, John's just talked about the different sources and the different interpretation of those models. Following the official sources is definitely the way to go. Just earlier today, we've had, obviously some issues with fake news surrounding, I think it was one of our newspaper companies, online newspaper companies. And again, it's just making sure that you are going to reliable sources, making sure if you're following a newspaper, you check what the actual the tagline is, and make sure you are aware that don't share anything that's not an official source. Follow the weather, follow Cayman Compass, great CNS. There's some really good articles out there, but at the same time, it's just making sure that you're aware what you're reading sometimes isn't what it seems.
It's almost worthwhile doing a whole show just on the fake news capacity of our modern medias, because it's affected now the weather, but it's affected so many different areas. Now we have election seasons coming up. We're going to see more of these. We had fake profiles that have been used in the past. Mm-hmm. It's so easy because everyone has access to the systems that you had mentioned earlier, John, and so it's easy for someone
becomes a weatherman overnight.
Becomes a weatherman overnight.
Our local source.
Actually, we kind of have a little story with that one, to be honest with you, because some of it it might be a reach to call it fake news. Okay. And what I mean by that is that when we were going through this whole process with these storms coming one right after the other, there was, from what I've understand, is an amateur weatherman that produced a video on YouTube, and he went on a website and collected the one of the weather modeled outputs, and basically just talked through the output as the storm was forecasted to come through Cayman. And that same model was predicting us to have a hurricane come through here with about a 956 millibar or something. That's a Cat 5.
Sure.
And nothing materialized out of it. But he was presenting it as if it was fact. Mm-hmm. And when people was going on Facebook and all these places and going on and bringing this out and stuff like that, and I said, listen, nothing has formed yet. Okay? The system has to form before we can start to talk about it, and we can look at it and say, well, this thing kind of looks real. Because if they teach you, if you were to sit down and you went to classes about weather models, you would know that weather models generate what we call spurious cyclones. They're fake storms. Okay? And so now it's not fake news because he's doing the weather model business. That's a weather model output. But you got to be very careful about interpreting the weather model and saying, hey, listen, this storm is beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's coming to the Cayman Islands. It's going to wipe you guys off the map and what have you, when nothing has formed yet.
Kind of wild that people can actually have, one, the audacity to take that initiative, and then at the same time, the capability to go and do so. Like they're armed and ready to just kind of fire off that attention-seeking news. And side note, second fact that I've learned today, spurious cyclones. Thank you. So you should come on the show a lot more often. I wrote it down just because I'm like, that's number 2. All right. I pride myself on one, but you pulled off 2 in one day. And we still have a little while to go in this show.
Oh, you mean I got to come up with the next one?
You're encouraged to do so.
It's spontaneous, John. It's spontaneous.
It is very spontaneous, but you have a half hour to think it out. But so as far as from hazard management on that fake news element, the sources that people really should be focused on are
the Cayman Islands National Weather Service, the government website, Cayman Islands Government, and Hazard Management. All three sites. When it comes to natural disasters or weather and so forth, they're the sites we encourage people to go to.
And how often are those three edited during the course of?
Edited
or
updated.
Yeah.
So I mean, we had a bit of an issue last week because our site went down during Delta, and that for a short period of time. But again, it's because there's so much flow of people trying to check in, and we are fixing that. That's been trying to relocate that. But we also have Facebook, Instagram account, Twitter. So we're updating those. I mean, everything that comes out from John, we report on, but also interim things. So every couple of hours we'll be updating those websites if and when we need, but also for tips and tricks during those activations. We'll always be there to say, have you done this? Have you done that kind of thing? So very regularly.
And of course, Radio Cayman, because we cover all your weather.
Absolutely, sorry, of course.
No.
Of course, I'm so sorry.
No, that's quite all right, because it's just, we have GIS, we have ourselves, and we pull all information from your two sources as it is right now. So.
Yeah. And you're actually very good at that, and again, we really appreciate that support, because the more people that can get the word out, the official sources, the better.
No, absolutely. And then, because people do get so reliant on sharing across social media, it becomes a very big challenge for the people receiving those shares to decipher, is this legit? Is this just embellished news, or is it altogether just a fake news broadcast and from someone that's just had too much time on their hands?
And you have to be so careful, because some of them do look incredibly legit. So making sure you share things, but they have to be legit. So make sure you do a bit of homework before you start sharing things around. I think is really important.
Absolutely. I'm not a big fan of sharing myself. I'll read everyone's post.
I love sharing, but I'm very, very careful as to what I share these days, because I have been the culprit before of doing just that, sharing the things that actually weren't real, but that was many years ago. Now I'm very careful.
Uh-oh. Yeah,
not weather related, John, I promise.
It was not weather related, John. You're good.
Oh, okay, you were good.
Don't worry about it.
It was completely political.
Not that either. I never share those. keep out of that.
And then as far as the so you were mentioning you were in Little Cayman very recently, and there's some big progress that's happened over in Little Cayman.
Yeah, there has. We went over there to do the community emergency response training for the community for Little Cayman, because we noticed that Cayman Brac has a team, Grand Cayman has a number of teams, and Little Cayman is kind of out there by themselves with limited resources. So we thought it'd be a good idea to provide their community with the skills that they need to survive if something were to happen, because it would take some time for resources to be deployed from Grand Cayman to Little Cayman.
Sure.
So it was ideal, and it was a great training session. The community was, wholeheartedly into the training. They were eager to learn new skills and just took it on right away.
And how many people make up that Cert team?
For Little Cayman, it was 30 persons, which was quite big.
That's quite a sizable.
Yeah. I mean, that team, I know we trained John's community last year in Cert, Savannah community, but incredible. I mean, within 4 days, we'd covered search and rescue, fire safety, first aid, damage assessments. It's basically psychosocial stress management, a 40-hour course sort of condensed for the main topics that they need. And they graduated on the Thursday. And again, by Monday, they've already got their first meeting. They've established teams. So, I mean, it's an incredible achievement what Little Cayman community has done. And I know this week we've already had several meetings with them, or phone calls with them this morning, to check in with them, see where they're at, and to make sure they're ready for this weekend if something should happen. So really exciting times over there.
And it's a good asset, given that they have limited firefighters, nurses, and just really limited resources in general. So they can now bolster the support there. And helping the nurse, helping fire, helping the police.
Absolutely. And as far as the makeup of that 30-person team, how is that made up as far as medical professionals, volunteers, just extra hands to move stuff around? Is there a breakdown as far as that 30 people?
They do have, the firefighters were a part of it, as well as the police, a gentleman from MRCU, and then a lot of the other persons are just residents, so persons who work at the resort or work at a restaurant. So it's just various persons in the community who want to be a part of helping.
Sure.
And I think, again, those things, I think the private-public partnership is so important. So having Cert teams, if they're all government members or all members private companies, it doesn't work. It has to be that partnership together, private and public, working together to make sure that everyone brings something to the table and that actually can work really well together.
No, absolutely. And as far as who leads the team or how their leadership within their ranks breaks down, how is that set up? Is that similar to the other teams here in Grand?
Yes, it's a standard hierarchy, but we put the onus on the groups to determine who they want to lead them, rather than us telling them who should be head of the group. So they come to consensus as to who they think the leader should be, and then they have a leader, a deputy leader, the secretary, and then they break off into groups that are specific to their community that they require. So a lot of the groups could either be search and rescue, communication, damage assessment, or food kitchen or something. So, but it's all they adapt it to what their needs are. So Little Cayman has a lot of diving, so they could have a team that deals with dive and rescue. So they have to figure out what works for their community. So it's why the hierarchy is there for them to follow. It is adaptable and flexible to what their needs are. Okay.
And as far as that team, because they are so close to the BRAC as well, is there anyone from the BRAC that's on that team, or is it strictly Little Cayman?
So we were really lucky. I mean, we had... Mr. Mark Tibbetts came and joined us for the graduation. We also trained 52 members in the BRAC 2 years ago, and we're really hoping that there'll be some kind of cross collaboration between those two teams. Two of the gentlemen from the fire service who trained with us this week were actually from the BRAC. They've just been deployed to Little Cayman, so there's a lot of potential to do more amongst the three islands working together. Every year we tend to do the Cert challenge. Unfortunately, last year we had to cancel it, and this year obviously with COVID. But the idea is that we have teams, I don't want to say competing, but yes, completely competing against each other, competing against each other. And the idea is that you're very proud of your team. You're going to do your best, and we have to go work through the whole thing, like damage assessment, fire again, and they get points, and there's a winner and all that kind of stuff, and often a very nice prize mitigation project in their communities. So. I know Prospect won 2 years ago, but I think they might have some competition next time we do it. From of course, Savannah and all of them. They're all again strong teams, so we're very happy to have them.
We just had the conversation before was on the Clash of Legends, the West Bay playing East End in the older seasoned folks games. Competition is a great
healthy
thing.
Competition. When it comes to disaster response, who can be the best disaster responder? Bring it on. We're loving that kind of competition because it's
absolutely
important.
There's two important things from my standpoint. Just looking at that is one. You immediately identify the areas that need improvement within those teams. And two, you put the pressure on, because in the real life situation that these teams are actually operating in, there's nothing casual and fun about those real life situations. They're under pressure the entire time they're in operation. And that's what this healthy competition offers them. They can go full tilt and get the anxiety up and adrenaline rushing.
They work under pressure, build those relationships, do carry the task as well.
Absolutely. Now, if I remember correctly, I actually don't fully remember. Last time we had you in studio, we were discussing you were in the process of recertifying individuals for the Cert teams, if I remember correctly, or getting more people up to par on the Cert teams.
Well, we do the monthly trainings for Cert. So
that's what it was, okay.
Yeah. We haven't done any recently because of COVID and whatnot. But we are looking to start back up presentations and to do virtual training such as communication, shelter management, and different stuff.
We did do damage assessment about a month ago, so it tends to be every month. And again, it's making sure that they are sustaining themselves. But we did deploy them for Delta. As well as for COVID, giving out leaflets, giving out masks, wellness checks and so forth. So, I mean, they really are the best people in the community to tell us what's going on from the community, because they know their community, they know the vulnerabilities and the capacities there. So it's a great resource for the NEOC and for hazard management when we're getting that fed back into, and so we can decide, what we need to do in each community. It's great.
And then as far as, does every district have their own, now CERT stands for Community
Emergency Response Teams.
And does every district have their own Cert team in operation right now?
We have West Bay,
North Sound Gardens,
North Sound Gardens,
BRAC, Little Cayman. We did have a team in Windsor Park and North Side, but we need to do some more work to restore them.
Revitalize. That's why a good leader is key, because they keep them in. Oh, you have Savannah as well.
And Savannah, oh my goodness, we're looking at Savannah.
We also have Newlands.
Yes, Savannah.
You had one in Newlands too.
Yeah, that's
North Sound Gardens.
Yeah, well, North Sound Gardens, and then Belford Estates we had originally, but we need to restore that as well.
So roughly how many people are you looking for the teams to be able to service? Ideally
about 25 to 30 people.
Well, a minimum of I would say
minimum
15.
15.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, we're kind of adaptable. As far as we're concerned, the more people are trained in disaster response, the better.
Absolutely.
So we've done teams. I mean, I think Savannah was quite a small team of about 10, 12 people.
12, yeah.
But ideally speaking, we'd aim for about 25.
Okay.
And it's very engaging, very interactive. The whole point of the training is it's not you're going to be death by PowerPoint. It's very much let's make sure you are operational and practical, and everything we do is like we did a tabletop exercise last week. This is for you to facilitate, and you come back with the answers to these questions, and it's much more engaging.
Death by PowerPoint, death by Zoom. It's this reality of training in this day and age. Sorry for anybody out there in a Zoom meeting right now. I genuinely apologize to you for that. On that note, let's go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll be chatting a little bit more about the Cert program by Hazard Management. Back with more talk today right after this.
Stronger, wider, higher, lighter. The all-new Ford Ranger Raptor. Powerfully built with a 2.0 diesel Panther engine and 210 horsepower. Modern with leather interior and 8-inch touchscreen, Sync 3 technology and power features. Tough, built to handle the off-road with 4-wheel drive, terrain modes, and a 10-speed automatic transmission. Coming early October to Vamped Motors, Walkers Road. To find out more and to test drive the bold new Ford Ranger Raptor, visit Vamped Motors, Walkers Road, or call 949-8288.
Honey, our fridge has stopped working again. Everything in the freezer is melting. We need to get this repaired right away. I'm calling Brand Source Service.
When you need the very best appliance service, call Brand Source Service at 623-5000. Offering service and installation of all brands and models of appliances. Brand Source Service is Cayman's source for appliance parts and repairs, with qualified and experienced technicians and the island's largest stock of appliance parts. Brand Source Service will have your repair completed in a flash. So, whatever the problem is, call the experts at 623-5000. Brand Source Service, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park. Telephone 623-5000.
Radio Cayman News. The defense bill was the topic of much debate in the Legislative Assembly.
Provides for the governance and management of the newly established regiment.
How we are calling it the Cayman Regiment without the involvement of the Caymanian people.
The regiment represents an opportunity to continue evolving.
Proud of them for coming forward to serve their country.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecast, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman, 89.9 FM.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
And welcome back to Talk Today. In case you're just tuning in, I'm Raymond Singh, filling in for Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, and very pleased to have the wonderful team from Hazard Management and the National Weather Service here in studio discussing the recent weather situation we have in the Caribbean region, along with the programs being put on by Hazard Management, and just an overall view of how we should be approaching this season responsibly. Miss Danielle, I'll throw the spotlight back on you.
Okay, so I guess just to mention, I mean, the CERT program is a partnership with the Red Cross. So everything we do, both in the CERTs and schools, we do with the Red Cross. They're very good partners, as is the Weather Service. We have a lot of partners. We're strong believers that working together as a team is much better than working in silos. So that's been a great relationship so far to date. Teresita, anything else you want to mention about CERT?
No, just if there are communities or persons that are interested, just email Hazard Management. My email is Teresita, TERESITA .dasilva, DASILVA @gov.ky. And I could provide more information. We can come to your community and do presentations to see if this is something you really want to do.
And again, I think the most important thing is messages. Is that the more prepared you are as a community and an individual and as an office, the better you'll withstand any emergency. I mean, talking about sort of preparedness, I mean, you know, from a sort of a wider scale, obviously we have a lot going on in Grand Cayman and Little Cayman and the BRAC. But we also do a lot of work with regional partners as well as the overseas territories and London. So we almost finished our orientation process with SEDEMA, which has been a very long process. It's a good 24 hours of different presentations over the last few weeks, as well as a very comprehensive audit process. But very happy to say we are official, really very, very close to being official members. And there's a lot of work. SEDEMA? SEDEMA stands for Caribbean Disaster and Emergency Management Agency. So that's sort of a CARICOM-led collaboration. Sure. And again, that's a lot of member states who can help each other in the event of an emergency or large-scale disaster. Now, we also work very closely with the overseas territories, the overseas in the Caribbean, including Bermuda. And again, we have meetings every 2 weeks as to updates, how we can help each other, what we can share. And that's not just deploying in an emergency. That's also sharing material, sharing plans, sharing legislation. So sort of the outside assistance is really, really important. We're also speaking today to London about the storm, but it's an ongoing relationship. Again, we work very closely with the London office, with the Governor's office here, as well as the Caribbean partners and the overseas territories. So that it does help. You know, you can all share information, but also know that we've all got each other's backs should the need arise.
And absolutely, and at the end of the day, like we're all in the Caribbean region together. We're facing very similar challenges. Many times resources, many times geographic challenges. Many of us being islands as it is, and just separated from so many. So this offers that connection that we so greatly need at times, especially in deploying following a storm. But like I said, in leading up, you mentioned one point, the legislation, sharing of legislation. What do you mean by that?
So we have we have legislation for disaster preparedness.
Okay.
We have our own legislation which protects both disaster fund and it has the emergency notification system. It has a large number of different responsibilities and roles, but also what we can and can't do in an emergency. You know, obviously there's an emergency powers that can be enacted if the state of play is really, really bad. But what's beautiful about this law is that we can do a lot of things that we don't need to enact the emergency powers for. I mean, for example, acquiring public buildings or vehicles. If the needs arise, hazard management can do that under our legislation. You wouldn't be able to do it in normal blue skies. And of course, the emergency powers go a bit further. But with emergency powers, it suspends all the cabinet. Now, that's obviously a very extreme thing to do. So absolutely. The legislation itself for Cayman is very, very good. And we've amended it a couple of times to make sure it is fit for purpose. But we've also shared that with Bermuda, for example. And Bermuda, used other overseas territory legislation to build their own legislation. So that's just an example of sort of sharing information. Bermuda's also shared a really good document with us recently about working in old people's homes and how we can make sure that we are doing the best for certain age vulnerable groups. So we're hopefully doing a bit of work there. We've just purchased a number of emergency response bags for the elderly that we're now about to distribute in the next month and a half.
Emergency response bags.
Yeah, so they're basically emergency kits for the elderly. So it has things like a radio, a flashlight, and whatever else. And that we're working very closely with Needs Assessment Unit. They've also vouchers, food vouchers, and the DCFS to make sure that they go to the right people. It's basically the 200 most vulnerable people, and there's quite a strict criteria as to how that would be given out. Okay. But other ideas have come from other overseas territories, so we're working very closely with the ATs to make sure that we're all doing the best we can for our communities.
Absolutely. That's a great one. That emergency response bag is actually fantastic. I've never heard of that being done, but it makes so much sense to actually have those for our elderly, those who are most vulnerable.
And I think right now with COVID, everyone's sort of had a bit of a hit financially.
Absolutely.
And, those families in particular who wouldn't be spending money on emergency pies because they have to get food,
Sure.
whether we
They're
want to make
focused
sure
on
that we
today.
can provide that and make sure that they are, catered for.
That's great. And so that idea came from that Bermuda sharing
That
strategy.
actually came internally, I believe, through meetings with the Elderly Persons Council here.
Okay.
But they've also shared, so Bermuda's shared information on how we deal with old residential units for the elderly. So
Okay.
we're going to hopefully implement some of those plans soon.
Are you able to share any of the ideas that were shared?
It's a big surprise.
It is a big surprise.
Yes,
All
I
right. So
won't say.
I can ask, but I can't get there.
You can ask. Call me back next time, and we'll come and tell you all about it.
Fair enough. It is great to see that level of sharing, both from the National Weather Service and John mentioned he's speaking at the next upcoming digital seminar coming up, and then the Sedima. Sorry, yeah, you got it right.
I'm not going to start saying sediment and etta or eta now.
Where'd you get that from? Ray, he did it. This guy at Radio Cayman's fault. That is now. As far as those bags, are those available as well to the CERT group as well? Do the CERT teams have equipment?
They do. So upon graduating, we present them with a bag which has helmets, gloves, rope, radio, duct tape, safety equipment, and any other thing that wrenches. So it's a good tool kit for them,
Sure.
so that when they do deploy, they have the necessary resources. And it is a standard bag that we offer, but they have the opportunity to upgrade if they want. So this is just what we start them off with.
Absolutely.
And the shelter management teams also have the cases. So every time a shelter management team gets deployed to one of our shelters in any of the Cayman Islands, they get a full comms kit, which is a laptop, radio, and various other equipment, but also a full shelter management bag with the same kind of equipment the CERT might, so like hard hat, visibility vest, and so forth.
And that's all in the other one kit that they just carry with them.
Exactly.
So the certs keep them at all times.
The certs do keep out the next question, so they don't have to give them back at all.
No, they don't.
Okay.
No.
And then is the helmet a really cool helmet, or is it
It's
construction?
great. We'll have to bring one over before
It's all bedazzled.
I hope so. If you're going to be out there, volunteering your efforts, you have to look the part.
We want to make sure everyone looks very glamorous for disaster response. So yes, they're great helmets.
I'm sure that they wouldn't mind.
No.
Yeah, see?
If you look good, you feel good, right?
Would you wear a sparkly helmet there, John, at the Savannah?
I had to stop some of mine from going clubbing with
But they do come in really handy. I remember after Ivan and telling my dad, make sure if you're going outside because of the wind, stick this helmet on. And it was actually a bike helmet at the time. But of course now, with a proper helmet and avoiding coconuts and any other sort of flying debris, then it's a great hat. Whether it's got diamonds on it or not, it's up to the certs themselves.
I totally asked that as a joke, but now I'm so happy that I did actually ask that question to get that response. Like John had to
John's
stop
gone all
people from going clubbing with his.
I'm just messing with you.
But wouldn't it have been great? Not that it wouldn't have been a very poor use of CERT equipment, but it's a funny story. And regardless of anything, that's a really funny story. Especially if they put on for Halloween, right?
I know.
I would not suggest that.
Please don't feed that idea into
Thank you.
anyone's head. Fortunately, Halloween's over for another year.
For another year. We're always talking about serious topics on Talk Today. We have to find some humor in it.
I think it's so important to find humor in everything that we do. Otherwise, this year in particular, I think it's affected everyone's mental health somewhat,
Absolutely.
having one thing after another. And I think you need to find that therapy, be it laughter, be it whatever else you do to get your stress levels down. It's so important.
Correct. Absolutely. If I could jump back to this, because I think the CERT one really is a really important topic here. Not that the Weather Service is not an important topic in this one. I apologize.
Sorry, John.
There was no attempt there to slight the Weather Service in any way, shape, or form.
Do I have to threaten you with a hurricane or something?
You are so close to me right now. He's in striking distance.
On your own.
But with regards to the training, because I know I asked last time, but it's such an important element, because so much actually is involved with the CERT training. It can almost feel like for someone who's thinking about volunteering, to kind of go, oh, that's too much. I can't handle that. That's too much. You're telling me about search and rescue. I can barely find my car keys every day. So someone that wants to volunteer can really feel a little jaunted about it.
Yeah.
What can you say to those listeners right now who are feeling a little nervous about it, but do want to be a part of their community team, about why this is actually a relatively painless process of being certified?
I mean, it is a new skill that you will be able to learn. And, I mean, if you don't take that leap and accept change, then you become stagnant, right? And it is a good way to give back to your community, because not only are you empowering yourself, but now you're also equipping your community to be able to be self-sustaining and respond, so you don't feel helpless. Because a lot of times when events do happen, you don't know what to do and you feel helpless, and that could play on your mental psyche. So if you're empowered with these skills, then when something happens, you immediately, at first you be kind of taken aback, but you start to jump into that role and feel confident to help out others, to help out your community, to help out the country in general. So I just think of it as the bigger picture. You're not just doing it for yourself, you're also doing it for the community, for your family, for the bigger picture in terms of being able to respond and help out. Because in COVID, there were a lot of persons who wanted to volunteer, and if we had more certs, they could have been helping out more in the NEOC, distributing different things. Just put aside the fear and just take a leap of faith.
And just to add to that, I think it's really important. When we go to any community, we ask them what they want to do, how many hours, when they want to do the schedule. So the schedule comes from them, not from us. So, for example, in the past, we've done North Sound Gardens. We did every Friday night from 5 till 8. Sometimes we've done it over a weekend at Little Cayman with a 4-day intensive. But we tend to spread out much more than that. So it's very much up to the community themselves as to how they want to, whether they want to take it very slowly over 2-3 months, or whether they want to do it in a very intensive way.
I think the intensive kind of works because you just get it over with rather than dragging it on for weeks on end.
And the enthusiasm stays up,
Absolutely. That team building kind of element.
Absolutely.
Kind of, like Little Cayman had a 4-day intensive, and right away they're
and Cayman Brack as well.
Monday.
Yeah, Cayman Brack was 5 days. Yeah.
Wow. And then as far as so for those who are parents who are a little concerned, like they have kids they're looking after, and they don't know if they can make the commitment to doing anything else post storm, are these positions open to? I'm assuming they're open to parents as well, but what is the requirement there for being involved?
I think there's two things here. So during COVID, we had a full volunteer call out, and that was run by the Red Cross. So the Red Cross would call, and they're not Red Cross volunteers at that stage, they're actually Cayman Islands volunteers, community volunteers. So that's one way of doing it. Again, if we had another emergency and we were calling out for volunteers, we do a much smaller training. It's only a couple of hours, and that's anyone can do that. And you can assign, basically say what kind of skills you have and what way you want to help. It could be relief distribution, could be cooking, could be helping at isolation facilities, whatever. But the CERT obviously is much more of a commitment, and that's sort of hands on the ground, more operational. But again, there's so many roles in the actual CERT team that people can take on that suits them. So we wouldn't want to put someone who's incredibly uncomfortable in search and rescue into that team, because it's not going to help. It'll hinder the team. But they might be much happier in doing communications, for example, or administration. So there's so many roles, both from a very strong commitment point of view in a CERT or in a more ad hoc disaster response under the Red Cross and the Cayman Islands government joint.
That's that's a great one to make sure the community is aware of. It's their skills are relevant, their schedule is relevant, their comfort zones are relevant, and then there's the training that comes in to really elevate their current skill sets to necessary levels. Now, as far as the different branches that make up the CERT team, you mentioned admin, you mentioned communications, search and rescue. What are the other legs that make up the CERT team?
They have search and rescue. You can have damage assessment, first aid.
Oh, first aid, okay.
Yeah, first aid. You can have food distribution.
Okay.
Relief distribution.
Yeah.
And again, as Teresa has said, it's very much dependent on what the team wants themselves.
Sure.
There is a sort of standardised roles that we need to help the NEAC, but at the same time, there's a lot of other things if they wanted to tailor it towards their own specific needs of their community.
Are there skills that are in the community? So if one community has a lot of heavy equipment, it could be a road clearance team where they know they have these persons in the community that can go out and clear the roads that emergency responders can get in. So, like I said, it's a very flexible structure. You don't have to follow it to a T. It is adaptable to your community and to your needs and to what hazards you will face. So one community may face flooding, whereas another community may be next to a fire, next to, say, the fuel depot. So that's a different hazard that they would have to face. So for them, it's just identifying what they are vulnerable to and adapting their team to meet those needs.
That's fantastic. John, did you manage to come up with another fact for me just yet?
Another fun fact?
Another fun fact for our listeners.
No, they're just giving me back deja vu when I went through the training. So,
hopefully good deja vu.
Nightmares.
Well,
is it nightmares for you?
The thing about it is that I think Savannah is very blessed in terms of the skill sets that we've got in that community area. But one of the things that should be pointed out, point one on it basically should be is that a common ordinary person on the street can be a member of the Cert team.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be. We're not going to ask you to go out there and do 500 sit-ups every morning, or 300 push-ups or anything of that sort. It's about you doing work for your community, and there were people on our group that were very skilled, like Mr. John Christian, who works in the fire department and is actually part of their Cert training. Okay. And so we're very blessed with him. But we also have other firemen and other policemen in the neighborhood and stuff like that. But at the same time, we also had common ordinary citizens out there coming out for the training and willing to be part of this Cert team.
And can I just add to that, actually? I mean, what's so important about those people is that, in any activation, you often have the police, the fire, and those guys already doing a role. Sure. So that Cert team is so much better placed when you've got a lot of people from the community who aren't already emergency responders.
Right.
Fantastic. Now, unfortunately, we are out of time for this segment. It's a very important segment where what's happening. We have your team in studio. If people are looking for more information on either the weather service or hazard management or the Cert programs, how can they get in touch with you?
How to get in touch with me?
Yeah, you don't want them to get in touch with you. You're like, don't email me.
His number is.
His number is.
No, no, please don't do that. I'll have many headaches. But we have a National Weather Service website, and our contact information is on there, including all of our staff information and everything of that sort. And of course, we've got a Facebook page that we operate as well, that we keep pushing information out there to the public to inform them with warnings and what have you.
Okay, so. Fantastic. And for the Cert programs, if anyone's looking to get involved in that?
Yes, I'm happy to receive emails. And once again, my email is Teresita, TERESITA.DaSilva, DASILVA @gov.ky. Or you can just contact us through Facebook, Cayman Prepared, just leave a comment and we can get back to you as well.
That's great. And for general hazard management?
Just general hazard management, www.caymanprepared.ky. All tips and tricks on there about how to prepare for any eventuality. And just again, a reminder to everyone just to keep a very close eye on official sources over the next few days to see what's going to happen with this storm, and just be ready for any eventuality.
That's great. Thank you so much again for coming today, and stay safe the rest of the week. On that note, we're going to go to our 2 p.m. headline news. When we come back, we'll be sitting down with Miss Faith Geely from the HSA. We'll be back with more talk today right after this.
Follow Radio Cayman on Twitter. All the latest information, breaking news, community events, and more. Follow us at twitter.com/Radio Cayman.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have on my own.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. Cayman Airways has scheduled 2 flights from Miami on Friday, November 20th and Friday, December 4th, which will stop in Cayman Brac to allow passengers to disembark before heading to Grand Cayman. For health and safety reasons, no passengers will be allowed to board the flight in Cayman Brac. In international news, Twitter has hidden Donald Trump's first tweet of the day after the U.S. election, in which the president wrote his vote advantage in key Democrat-run states had started to magically disappear. It earlier took similar action over a post in which Trump said his opponents are trying to steal the election. Both messages are now hidden behind warnings that says the claims are disputed and might be misleading. Sarah McBride is to become the first transgender state senator in the U.S. after she won her race in Delaware. Ms. McBride has worked as the press secretary of LGBTQ advocacy group the Human Rights Campaign and was a trainee in President Obama's White House. Voters have approved ballot measures to legalize recreational marijuana in Arizona and New Jersey, and both recreational and medical use in South Dakota, CNN projects. South Dakota will be the first state ever to approve medical and recreational marijuana measures at the same time. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
your voice, your choice, your radio.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Welcome back to Talk Today. In case you're just tuning in, I hope you enjoyed our in case you're just tuning in, we have had a great show so far. Featured the clash of the Legends football tournament coming up on Monday, November 9th at Ed Bush Stadium, weather permitting, of course. And then just now we had the team from Hazard Management, always a fun bunch here in studio. And now the one and only Miss Faith Keeley here to talk about a very serious topic of World Prematurity Day. Welcome to Talk Today.
Thank you, Ray. Every time I come, you guys make me feel like such a VIP. You're like, oh, Faith Keeley.
Well, you're a VIP.
I'm just Faith.
No. You're just, and I'm sure if you're a caller on the line, you just heard that comment. Please give us a call in and second our opinion here that Ms. Faith is a VIP, not only here at Radio Cayman, but in general in the Cayman community.
Thank you very much. Every time I have low self-esteem, I just need to come to Radio Cayman.
Absolutely. We're here to do that. We're here to uplift people. That's
Exactly. But thank you so much for having me. I am here wearing my HSA hat today. Yes. We're talking about World Prematurity Day, which is normally November 17th every year. And normally we do a big to-do, but because of COVID this year and because of the risk for that particular population, we decided to not do our big open house, but we still wanted to inform the public about the services that we offer, as well as just a little bit more about World Prematurity Day and about prematurity in general, so that people are aware that we do have the ability to support the needs of this particular population.
Sure. So it's a tricky one because we're talking about kids here. We're talking about very vulnerable infants, and when you start talking about the most vulnerable of the population, you don't get much more vulnerable than a premature baby.
Exactly.
So what qualifies when we talk about what exactly determines whether a baby is premature or not? Is there a weight? Is it a birth month?
It's normally gestation weeks.
Okay.
And so we have different types of prematurity. So you would have extreme prematurity, which is usually less than 28 weeks. We have preterm, which is normally between 28 to 32 weeks. And then we have like moderate to late preterm, which would be 32 to 37 weeks. And actually, new literature coming out is even calling 38 weeks early term, because we're realizing the importance of making it to that 40-week mark, that is really important for the brain development. And we're seeing a lot of longitudinal studies showing, 38 weeks isn't quite as cooked as we thought it was, you know?
Sure.
So typically any child born before 38 weeks is considered early term, all the way down to extreme prematurity.
Mm-hmm. Now, with regards to that, you mentioned the brain development. How are those studies done to measure the effects between the 38-week and the 40-week?
So a lot of what they've done, a lot of major hospitals that have big neonatology units have been engaging in in lots of long-term studies, kind of following groups of preemies and following them through adolescence, adulthood. So I know like a hospital in London did a really great, thorough study and really helps to inform some of the long-term effects, because a lot of times I think professionals think and parents think, once they're 2, they're fine because they've caught up. But we're seeing a lot of just sort of long-term patterns in terms of their learning behaviors and what makes them tick and motivations and that sort of thing. So the more data we get, the better. And I think because you're seeing healthcare is going a lot more research driven, I think we'll start to see more and more long-term evidence coming out, kind of saying these are some of the effects that we're seeing. These are some of the reasons why it's important. A lot of things we thought were okay 20, 30 years ago are not okay now. So this is where the growth comes from, is from the data. Because we want, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're caring for people in our community in a way that is evidence-based, that we know we're doing what is best for them, not just whatever we think personally.
I think that might be a refreshing note for many of us to hear what you just said, that it's becoming more research-based, and we're discussing healthcare, which is almost entirely research-based.
Yes.
To know that it's a little more solidified in terms of where the content and information is coming from.
Exactly.
But most of us, at least most of us,
exactly,
on surer footing. But you're absolutely right, because pre-50 years ago, many things came from generational customs. So it was whatever mom and dad did previously was what we will do going forward, whatever that remedy might have been. And however far-fetched that remedy might seem today, that was how.
Exactly. And I mean, the thing is that as we advance in terms of healthcare, a lot of babies that would have died are now surviving.
Sure.
Right? And so, but with that survival, that comes with uncharted territory. And this is where the research is really important. You know, when I was in college, I never dreamed I would ever work with a X22 weeker. And I have, right? So it's like, wow, you know, you think
X22 weeker.
Right.
22-week-old premature.
Yep. Born at 22 weeks.
And survived.
Survived.
And is flourishing.
Flourishing, yeah.
We're
still a work in progress, but flourishing.
Sure. I mean, it's still
flourishing.
When you think about that,
that's amazing.
That's half the gestation period.
Yep, it's
roughly.
Amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so jumping back into that premature mindset for a moment, we start talking about the risks that babies or premature babies do face. Do the risks vary from depending on where they are in that gestation period?
Yes. So you have general risks, and you also have risk populations in terms of populations that we know you're at a greater risk of having a premature baby. So we know people who are of African American descent. Well, the research says African American, but obviously it would be people of African descent have a tendency to have higher risks of prematurity. And I don't know if it's because historically people of African descent tended to be more physical and do a lot more physical work. So I don't know if it's related to that, stressors, socioeconomic. It could be a number of reasons why.
What is that? What are the numbers with regards to percentages of?
I don't have numbers. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't have those numbers, but
fine.
I could get them.
It's just interesting.
Yes,
I didn't expect you to say anything based off of race or history.
But apparently race is a factor, yeah.
Okay.
And teenage moms we know are at a higher risk, as well as women over 35. And we also know people who have a lower socioeconomic background are also at a higher risk for having premature babies.
Are some of those based on stress then, theoretically?
Definitely. And I mean, I know even just during COVID, I know at HSA we have seen an increase in premature births. I know at Ivan, like I have a lot of teenagers that I work with now who were Ivan babies, who were preterm during that period because it was a high stress period.
Sure.
So stress definitely is a factor. And as well as general health, you know, when you think about people who are coming from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, they may not necessarily have access to the health insurance to seek a lot of that medical care. They may wait until later on in their pregnancy to seek medical care. They also may not necessarily eat proper diets. They may not take prenatal vitamins. They may not engage in things that most people would do to try to ensure a healthy pregnancy, right? Because of financial reasons. And so that is why socioeconomic status can play a risk factor in terms of premature deliveries.
It's an interesting one. Okay, so we have just to recap then, African Americans do show a higher tendency towards this on teenagers or those women over the age of 35. So there's a window there where you can mitigate a bit of the risk with having premature babies.
Yes.
And then the last one was basically the stress involved and how you carry it. So the lower socioeconomic brackets tend to fall into it because of the absence of
well, typically people who come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds just don't access healthcare in that way, and then you also have sort of the usual culprits, using tobacco use, vaping is a big thing, alcohol use, substance abuse, those sort of things which will contribute to risks of prematurity, and there's also just if you have complicated pregnancy, so maybe you have a lot of health issues, if you have high blood pressure, if you have diabetes, if you have just sort of your own personal healthcare issues, that can also affect your ability to carry full term. Doesn't mean you cannot, but it just means you might have a higher risk.
So it's like almost anything that would actually create an unhealthy environment for a fetus becomes a scenario for potential premature birth.
Yes.
How nature works, quite logical.
Yeah.
On that note, let's go to our quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll be sitting down again with Miss Faith Geely from the HSA. And as always, we do invite you to join our conversation, 1-800-534-8255. Be back with more talk today right after this.
Do you remember when 2020 was great?
I don't think it was...
2020 vision, not the year.
Right.
Make 2020 great again with Optical Outlook, the new West Bay store now open. With their designer frames and sunglasses, eye health has never looked so good. Call 746-2020 and book your eye exam today at Caymanian Village and now at Jake Scott Plaza in West Bay, offering premier eye care in Cayman for over 30 years. Come see the difference with Optical Outlook.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
The Ministry of Tourism's Displaced Tourism Employee Stipend Program has reopened for registration from Monday 2nd November through Wednesday 4th November. This fourth registration period is for new registrants only, and all information must be supplied via the online portal stipend.ourcayman.ky by the deadline 4th November. Email stipend@caymanislands.ky with any questions.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Raymond Singh, filling in for Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, and in studio, the one and only Ms. Faith Geely here, talking about World Prematurity Day, a serious and unfortunate topic that is the reality for many. Now, when we start talking, Faith, about the symptoms that premature babies face or the developmental concerns, you mentioned briefly brain development in the latter weeks of gestation. What are the other developmental issues, and how do they factor into when babies are born?
So the main concern when you're dealing with a premature baby is their heart and their lung development. So a lot of times that is the biggest concern. So you want to make sure that if they're born at a time where their lungs are not fully developed, then they're going to need respirator and those sort of things, oxygen and that type of thing. So most premature babies who are born do have some type of heart and or lung issue if they're less than 36 weeks. That tends to be one of the more frequent things that we see. And this can lead to a whole myriad of issues because we want to make sure the body is oxygenated and that the heart is able to carry that oxygenated blood around the body. And so when a child is not able to breathe properly, it can affect other things. It can affect their sleep, which babies need to grow. It can affect their eating, which is normally where the speech therapist comes in. And so the other things that you might see is poor growth. So a lot of times we know premature babies are quite small. They're quite petite. And so a lot of times because of their size and because they have not fully developed all of the oral motor muscles and that sort of thing, sucking, swallowing, all those things can be very difficult for them. And a poor intake makes it difficult for the baby to grow the way that they need to. And so a lot of times you'll see they may need feeding tubes initially, and then we wean them off of them as they get bigger, and we can start to develop some of those innate skills. And so the other thing that we might see is muscles and a musculoskeletal system that is not fully developed. And this is where your occupational therapy and physiotherapy would come in and to help stretch the baby, help to swaddle the baby in a way that is going to help to stimulate those motor planning issues, or not motor planning issues, but motor planning skills, so that we can prevent motor planning issues in the future. And so the last one is, like I mentioned earlier, was the neurological development. So that's why we want babies to be born full term, because that's always a big concern. And when a baby is born, we don't know the impact of that neurological piece until they start to grow and develop, to see, has there been any damage? Is speech going to be a problem? Is learning going to be a problem? Is development going to be a problem in terms of accessing school and that sort of thing? So those are the major things that we're concerned about when we're dealing with a child who's premature. And luckily, we are very fortunate to live in an island where we have all of the necessary services to provide those types of interventions to children who are premature and people who have experience working with children who are premature across the lifespan. So from baby up until school age, we have the necessary multidisciplinary team to provide that family with the support they need as they're navigating these waters.
Is it one unit within the HSA that handles this, or are they spaced out between the different units?
So we have our main therapy services department, and in the therapy services department, we have speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and we have dedicated pediatric staff amongst our team. And we also liaise very closely with our in-house pediatricians, who are also phenomenal with dealing with our premature babies and getting them stable, keeping them alive, and a lot of times just helping to make sure that if we don't have the necessary equipment or skill set to meet that child's needs, our doctors have been so amazing at keeping that baby where they need to be so that we can get them airlifted off. And we have great working relationships with several hospitals in Florida that we can help to make sure that child is getting what they need, and when they're ready to transfer back to Cayman, that we make sure that it's a seamless transition so that they're getting the services that they need to make sure that they're hitting those developmental milestones at the appropriate times. So we have that, which is the pediatric services. We also have a respiratory therapy team, which is attached to the critical care unit, but they work autonomously, and they are very helpful with premature babies who need additional oxygen. They may need suctioning, that sort of thing, and they help to coordinate with the families to make sure that they have all of those equipment things that they need, or if they need new equipment, a CPAP machine, which is like a breathing machine, our team is fully able to meet all of those needs.
And as far as the parent side of the coin, when it comes to helping them get through, because at the end of the day, baby needs to get through, but parents need to be able to.
Absolutely.
Parenting is a challenging enough venture on its own, but there's a whole new world of learning how to deal with someone who's even smaller than you expected and more fragile than you expected. What services on offer in that regard to parenting counseling to some degree, or?
So a lot of it is just with the pediatricians, the pediatric nurses on the ward. So as the baby comes home, our nurses on the pediatric ward will do a lot of training with the parent, making sure that they're comfortable with all the bits and bobs if their child is coming home with anything. And the therapists themselves do a lot of interaction with the parents, constant parent education. So every session that we do, there's always a parent education element to it. Yeah. So we just try to provide as much support to our families as possible and help to coordinate between different agencies, different services. So if they need early intervention program, we try to assist with steering the parents in the right direction. Or if they need to see a private doctor, we try to work with their pediatrician to help them get what they need to make sure that their needs are being met.
Of course. And then as far as you raise a point, and it might seem very obvious, but my head couldn't wrap around the answer. When you talk about the babies going home, are they going home at that 40-week marker, or when they're physically able for the parents to actually care for them outside of the hospital?
It depends on the baby.
Okay.
Yeah,
so it is a case-by-case scenario.
It is absolutely a case-by-case. And one thing I can say in all my experience working with preemies, they are the most ferocious warriors you ever want to meet. I mean, these little tiny human beings, and it's so amazing to think, oh my gosh, this is a person. They're so tiny. But they're so resilient, and they really push things that I think most adults could not deal with, all the poking, the prodding, this machine, that machine. And, when you see them at 1 year and 2 years, and you're just like, this is so amazing that this little person was able to beat all of these odds, and they're walking and they're talking and they're eating and they have personality. And, it's a lot of the children that I see that are older now, I look back and sometimes I say, gosh, I can't even believe that they were 1 pound when they were born, or 2 pounds when they were born, because you forget, because they're so resilient, They're such an amazing population, and the parents are the true heroes as well, because what you find is the parents automatically just kind of go into warrior mode, and they're like, and they learn, so some of the parents come home and they're like, yes, he has this, we did this, we need this, and they learn it, and they really learn the lingo, and they learn what they need to do and advocate for their children. And that is the best thing, I think, that if you're the parent of a child who's premature, is to be their advocate. That's the best thing you can do, and just follow through with all the advice that the team is giving you, because ultimately you're the one who's with your child every day.
Of course.
We just see them for a snapshot of their week, but you see them every day. And so, but we have some amazing children, and we have some amazing parents on this island. Definitely.
Fantastic. And as far as, actually 2 questions. So the first one was in regards to children who you have seen from when they were 1 pound and they're now healthy, thriving young people. How old is the eldest one? How many years have you seen this development in this little human being? And
it depends. Sometimes I get them right when they're small, and sometimes I get them when they're toddlers, and sometimes I see them when they're teenagers. So it depends.
But have you seen that 1 pound premature baby grow up to be like a 10-year-old? And how does it feel to see that 10-year-old?
I just look at them and they just make me smile. Because they're like a normal kid, and that's the thing is that they end up being normal kids, and it can be very overwhelming, I think, for parents, because when they think about it from the medical perspective and they think, oh, my child has this wrong, and they have this wrong with their eyes, and this wrong with their lungs, and this wrong with their heart. And when they're small, it's so overwhelming, of course. And then when you see this, you tend to think like, my child will never be able to do X, Y, and Z.
Of course.
But as they grow up and they just smile and they light up your world, and they start talking and they get feisty and just will be like, no. And, because they love to learn the rude things first, and so,
shocker.
Yes, I've had many a parent say, well, they talk a lot now, Miss Faith,
Thank you so much.
And all they want to say is no. So, but when you see them develop that personality, then you're just like, this little kid, wow, it just reminds you that they're, at the end of the day, they're still people, but they just had a rough start to life,
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, is the HSA taking on anything in particular for November 17th?
No, not our usual. Normally, we would do an open house, and we do complimentary developmental screenings, and we do like parent education. Because of COVID, we've kind of decided to just err on the side of caution because we don't want to unnecessarily expose this very vulnerable population. But if you are a parent and you have any questions or concerns, if you're the parent of a premature child who is under 24 months and you're curious, you want to know where your child is at, if they're developing okay, you can certainly reach out to the therapy services team, and we would be happy to schedule a one-on-one. We could just do an informal parent chat, or if you want them to get a formal assessment, we can certainly accommodate that as well.
And what is your contact information?
So faith.geely@hsa.ky. My last name is spelled Gealey @hsa.ky, or you can call 244-2733. and you can arrange our team. Somebody I forgot who's a very important member of the team is our nutritionist, because she helps a lot with our babies as they're transitioning from tube feeds to oral feeds to pureed foods and going on to eating, like normal food. The nutritionist is a key member of that team because she really helps to support families to make sure that babies are getting what they need so that they can continue to grow.
Sure.
Yeah. So we have a full team.
That's fantastic. Faith, as always, we do thank you. We are towards the end of our show now.
Oh, gosh, that went by so quickly.
It flies by so quickly.
It went by so quickly.
But thank you so much for coming in. And again, if you do need to reach out to Faith, it's faith.geely, Gealey, @hsa.ky.
That's correct.
On that note, we do need to call it a wrap for today's show. Thank you again to all of our loyal listeners out there in Radio Cayman Nation, to Miss Susan Watson and our guests from Hope for Today, Hazard Management, and of course, Miss Faith Geely from the HSA. It has been a pleasure bringing you Talk today, and on behalf of the entire Radio Cayman family, thank you for sharing your afternoon with us. I'm Raymond Singh. God bless, and have a safe rest of your Wednesday.
Shaken yet standing firm.
I was not built to break.
This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.